Well, this is absolutely one of my favorite episodes of the next 24 hours because this is the most authentic and genuine and loving and giving person I think I've ever met. And he's going to give us the blueprint to apply this to our own lives and our own relationships and our own organizations. You don't want to miss this episode. Trust me. Welcome to the next 24 hours, where I'm going to give you real information you can really use to transform your life and work one day at a time. I'll be your host, Curtis Zimmerman. Well, today I'm very honored and privileged to introduce our guest on the next 24 hours, and his name is Tommy Spaulding. Now, Tommy Spaulding's resume is robust, and so is his love for all people. So let me just throw out just a few things about him. Let's see, he's a two-time New York Times and Wall Street Journal best-selling author. He's the former CEO of an organization called Up With People. He is the founder of the National Leadership Academy, which is in its 21st year. He's a world-class keynote speaker. He's a retreat facilitator and a leadership guru, and a very close friend of mine. Please welcome to the show, Tommy Spaulding.
Curtis, how's my good friend Ohio doing?
I am living the dream. I am living the dream, especially because you're here today. And, you know, I have to be honest with you. I do a lot of different interviews, and we've been doing this for a while, but you're just like a dream come true that you're here today. I know that you leave with the heart. I know that you live with the heart, and I can't wait for you to share some of your wisdom with all of our listeners right now. So if you would just tell us a little bit about your past and maybe a little bit about Up With People, because I think there's kind of a unique story between you and me with that as well.
Yeah. Well, I grew up upstate New York. My parents were school teachers, and I never was on an airplane until I graduated high school. When I say graduated high school, Curtis, what you and I have in common is we're both dyslexic. And so graduating high school was like a miracle because I graduated, towards the bottom of my class with a 2.0 GPA, and watched my friends graduate high school magna cum laude and soon cum laude. And I graduated high school, thank God Almighty, cum laude. It's barely graduated. But this amazing international musical leadership organization called Up With People came to my high school. I wasn't really planning on going to a good college because of my grades, and I even thought about trade school. But Up With People came to my high school, and I just fell in love with the mission, which was bringing all people together. There were blacks and whites and Jews and Christians and communists and capitalists in every walk of life. And so instead of going to community college or trade school or, half-assed college because of my grades, I joined Up With People at 17 years old, and that program really changed my life. And that's when I first met your wife, Michelle. When she was 19, I was 17, and we traveled all over the world together in Castile, Up With People for a year. And that program, literally, changed the course of my life of serving other people and making a difference in the world, and was honored to become CEO and president of Up With People 25 years after your wife and I traveled together as students. And so much of my message in my books and my platform about servant leadership, about heart-led leadership, about loving others really comes from the many years I traveled the world with Up With People.
Wow, that's beautiful. And I know 20 years ago, you started a organization to give back to the youth and to do something in a positive way, similar to Up With People, and that is the National Leadership Academy. And this was its 20th anniversary, I believe. Will you tell us a little bit about what that Leadership Academy means to you? But also, I think there's a really beautiful story about when you decided this was a mission you wanted to take on, and then when you tried to go get funding to get some help. There's a kind of a beautiful story about that. I'd love to hear that and share it with our listeners.
Yeah, sure. So 21 years ago, I started the National Leadership Academy. And for the past 20 years, we've had a summer academy in Denver, Colorado, where we've had 200 to 300 high school kids from all over the country come to Denver for a 4-day intense leadership academy, really teaching high school kids about, servant leadership and love. And what made me really want to start this program 21 years ago, Curtis, was probably what I was taught in Up With People. is that we have to teach young people to love and serve all people. And the first person that we need to teach young people, high school kids, to love is themselves. And I know this sounds crazy. Like, why would you teach a high school kid to love themselves? But I believe now that I've been coaching, working with companies for the last 20 years, I've realized that there's two types of people in the world. There's self-serving leaders, leaders that serve themselves first. And there's servant leaders. I call heart-led leaders, leaders that serve others first. And the common denominator between what makes a servant leader, wants to serve their wife, serve their husband, serve their kids, serve their employees, serve their community, serve their customers, and what makes a self-serving leader, meaning it's all about them. They have to serve themselves first. The corner office, they take care of themselves first in their marriage, in their relationship with their kids, in their work, everything. And the common denominator is those that are heart-led leaders love themselves. And those that are servant leaders don't love themselves, meaning they don't have self-confidence. They don't have self-worth. They're angry, they're jealous, they're insecure. And so I've learned if in life, you either become a heart-led leader or a servant leader based on if you have the self-confidence. So the National Leadership Academy is a 4-day program to teach these high school kids that they are loved and they should love themselves. And if they choose to love themselves and accept themselves, who they are, rich, poor, inner city, outer city, public school, private school kids, crazy parents, no parents, helicopter parents, wonderful parents, whatever your circumstance it is, that you're loved and that you're special. And if you could teach a high school kid to believe in themselves and love themselves, then you can spend the rest of the 3-day academy teaching high school kids, now that you love yourself, now that you have the self-confidence to believe in who you are, now you can go out there and change the world and serve others and put other people first and love all people, blacks, whites, Jews, Christians, Muslims. And that's really the essence of National Leadership Academy. We've had about 11,000 kids go through our program in 21 years, is really to teach the next generation of servant leaders.
And that is so beautiful. And I can't imagine you would ever go to anyone and tell that story and they wouldn't write you checks. But my understanding is when you first told that story, that's not exactly the way it went.
So I had this great idea. I wanted to start a National Leadership Academy 21 years ago. And I put all my seed money that I had from my business school days and hired a staff of people and went to schools and said, listen, I want to build the first leadership program that's not just inner city kids, but outer city kids. Picture a white kid with affluent family and an inner city African-American kid in the Boys and Girls Club in the inner cities of St. Louis, and picture them living in the dorm together at National Leadership Academy. And I had this incredible vision. I set the vision, went around, tried to get funding, and I realized how hard it was to raise money. I'm a young kid. I've never run a nonprofit before. I had all of my experience in upper people, but I've never really started my own nonprofit. And things got so bad, Curtis. Thank God I wasn't married. I literally had to sell my house. I moved into my office. I lived in a cot for nearly 2 years in the office, showered at the office, and I just gave everything with a guy named Joel Mooney, who ironically yesterday, we went for a 4-mile walk yesterday. And we were just talking about those days living in the cot and starting Leaders Challenge, now the National Leadership Academy 21 years ago. And it was a humbling start. And I'll never forget those days, but we've launched it. It's our 21st year. And Curtis, you're such a dear friend. You have come to the National Leadership Academy, I think now 9 years in a row, speaking to the students with your message of life at performance level. And you're always the favorite speaker. And so the magic when these 200, 300 high school kids come to Denver on a Thursday and Sunday, you have to peel them off the floor. They don't want to leave. And it's just so beautiful seeing these total stranger high school kids learn how to love and serve the world. It's one of the most remarkable things I've ever been a part of.
And I have to say, it is one of the most remarkable things I've ever been a part of. And that's why all 3 of my teenagers have gone there, and some multiple years. My son Oliver wants to go as many times as possible and potentially be a leader there one day when he's old enough as well to volunteer, because that's the impact it's had on his life. And I get emotional because I can't say in words right now to the people that are listening, but I want you to visualize the kind of people he's talking about that are coming from all over the country, very different, very caught in their little personas, and they slowly take the mask off and slowly start loving openly and slowly start sharing who they are. And by the time it's the last day, people are crying and hugging and can't take enough pictures, and they are literally transformed. But I would also say that's because of the heart that you bring to it. But I do, just as you do, lots of different conferences with lots of headliners and a lot of great speakers. But the speakers you're able to bring together to have volunteer are some of the best and most impactful speakers in the world, and that you're able to bring them year after year is truly incredible, and it speaks so much to the program. Will you just tell us in a couple minutes a little bit about some of your speakers that you bring in, because I think that's so valuable for people to know, and I would love for them to get a little plug for all the time and energy they have put into the National Leadership Academy and into all of these kids through the years, because they're amazing people.
Yeah, thanks for saying that, Curtis. The program is for 4 days, and one day we do a full day of community service. So they're out in the community, going to soup kitchens, homeless shelters, painting people's homes that are, that they can't afford their home being painted. Like they spend the whole day serving the community, and they learn what it's like to really serve others. And the second day, we do a whole team building day where they go out to a ropes course and do trust falls and zip lining and, just really a team building leadership exercise. And then the third day is my favorite day, is when we have this whole program called If You Really Knew Me. And that's when everyone really gets up and shares their story. And it's incredible when high school kids can really share their backgrounds of what they've been through and what they've overcome. And the speakers that we have sprinkled out the 4 days are just incredible. In 21 years, Curtis, we've never paid a speaker to come. They've always donated their time. And being on the speaking circuit myself, when you do a couple hundred gigs a year, you're on the road all the time. The last thing you want to do is jump on the plane and go do a free speech for a bunch of high school kids, even though it's a wonderful program, but you're away from your family so much. And I mentioned that, I think this was going to be your 10th year speaking at the Academy, Curtis. My good friend John O'Leary in St. Louis has spoken to the program many times. One of my best friends and mentors, Frank DeAngelis, the principal of Columbine High School during the tragedy, has literally spoken to the National Leadership Academy every year since it's been incepted. And now he's on the board and chairman of the board. The list goes on of just incredible speakers that have overcome great obstacles and doing great things in the world. It's really a special program that when kids say, this is the greatest week of my life, I say, I don't want that. I don't want this to be the greatest week of your life. That's for camp. Camp is for the greatest week of your life. I want this to be the life-changing experience that you'll never be the same after the National Leadership Academy. You go back to your home, back to your school, back to your community, back to your church, your synagogue, your temple, and you lead with others first. Most high school kids, Curtis, think about themselves first. It's just what a 14, 16, 17, 18, 15, 19-year-old kid does. It's just natural to think about yourself first, right? I got teenagers living in my own home. They think about themselves. It's natural. But to reprogram a kid's heart, to reprogram their brain to actually say, you'll have a more successful life, a joyful life, wealthy life, happy life, if you actually live a life putting others first. And I say the 4 most important words of leadership. The 4 most important words of leadership, whether you're a high school kid or you're CEO of a Fortune 500 company or you're a parent or you're a doctor, teacher, lawyer, the 4 most important words of leadership are, it's not about you. It's not about you. Self-serving leaders, by the way, 90% of the world are self-serving leaders. It's about them. It's all about them. But to be that leader, to be a servant leader is really, really hard. That bottom 10% of the world, the top 10% of the world, however you want to call it, to be a servant leader, to live a life where it's not about you is a choice. And it's really hard to make that choice. But when you do, you have an extraordinary life and extraordinary organizations because so.
Hello everyone, my name is Noah Zimmerman, and I'm the narrator of the audiobook version of Life at Performance Level. I'm sorry to interrupt this episode, but I just wanted to let you know that right now at curtiszimmerman.com, the audiobook version of Life at Performance Level is being offered absolutely free. It's right there on the center of the landing page. There's a button that says Free VIP Experience. Just click that and you'll have access to the audiobook and lots of other content that'll help you live the dream. Thank you so much for listening, and let's get back to the program.
I know that you've helped thousands and thousands of teenagers see that, but we're focusing on this today, on this podcast for a very specific reason I want to get to. But I also want to make it clear to all of the people that are listening that are professionals and C-suite, and that Tommy also does this and has with thousands and thousands of executives and does retreats and is a keynote speaker, and his resume speaks for his, the intro I did speaks for itself. But I wanted to take the time to talk specifically about the National Leadership Academy because I truly believe it's one of the treasures that we have. And with, the pandemic and COVID-19, I know that you had to cancel all of the programming, and I know that you had to make some hard choices with that program moving forward. But what I'd love for you to share is something I talk a lot about, and that is the scripts of our lives change. And we have our show and it's going well and our life feels complete. And then all of a sudden something happens and we have to write the next chapter. And some people spend 3 years talking about the old show and talking about the past and talking about I'm a victim and talking about poor me and can you believe this is happening to me, just like you were just saying. Other people go, oh, wow, this is a change. How am I going to navigate this and still take care of the things that I believe in? So just like you were willing back in the day to sleep on a cot in your office for 2 years to make your dream come true, I'd love for you to share what you're doing now to make sure that the National Leadership Academy stays the amazing organization it is moving forward by this incredible journey that you're getting ready to take.
Yeah. Well, this next month in June was supposed to be our 21st annual National Leadership Academy. We had somewhere between 200, 300 kids already signed up, and it was going to be our largest year ever, probably. We had an incredible executive director and a woman named Holly and her lieutenant Tracy and incredible volunteer staff. And we were ready to go. And then obviously we also had our Global Youth Leadership Academy, which is our intense high school program where we take kids to Europe and all over the world. And we had a trip planned to Haiti for GYLA, a trip planned to Costa Rica to build homes with hope. And we had a trip planned in Norway and taking high school kids. So my summer was all filled with youth programs, their National Leadership Academy, our Global Youth Leadership Academy, and all got canceled because of the coronavirus. And it was a tough decision. And we had to, let go of our staff. And financially to keep our staff throughout the year was just tough. And donations went down. When they give refunds to the program, it was just tough. And so I got to raise a lot of money to keep our nonprofit alive for the 21st and 22nd and 23rd year of our program. So I was thinking about the pain points of my life. I need to raise, a few $100,000 for National Leadership Academy, which is hard to do in this climate. I have to really fill my heart with serving others, because all the things that I care about, like speaking to companies and the NLA and GYLA and all the programs that I pour into kids and executives have all been canceled because of the coronavirus. So my second pain point is I really need to find a way I can give back into the world. And so I came up with this crazy idea. I'm holding a map in my hand, Curtis, and of really the Midwest of the United States. And so on June 13th, which is the day after my daughter's birthday, on June 12th, I'm getting in a car, and for 18 days, I'm traveling to 18 cities in 11 states, visiting the heartland of America. And my book is called The Heart-Led Leader, my last book. And it's really about the journey of 18 inches from the head to the heart. That's that's the distance from your brain to your heart is 18 inches. And that's the journey that a leader has to take to connect the head and the heart. So I'm connecting the head and the heart. I'm getting in the car, driving to 18 cities in 18 days. I'm staying in host families. I'm not staying in hotels. I'm not flying. I'm driving. And I'm going to the heartland of America and having dinner and lunches and breakfasts with teams, corporate teams, community teams, private companies teams, and really uniting America through, after this COVID, and really bringing teams together and having in-depth, heartfelt conversations. That heart-led leadership is needed now more than ever. And I can't get in a room and speak to 100 people. I can't get in a room and speak to 10,000 people, but I can get around a dinner table with 10 leaders and really share my heart with them over a meal. And so I've gotten 11 cities sponsored of the 18 cities, most of them in Iowa, which is incredible. My plan is to go to Ohio. I already have a city locked for Toledo, but I'd love to have a couple more cities in Ohio. I'm going to Milwaukee, and I'd love to have Chicago and a few other cities. So I'm really trying to nail down these last 7 cities, but I'm committed. On June 13th, I'm heading out, and then I come back to Denver, Colorado for my last city, which is my hometown, on July 1st. And wonderful company Comcast is going to sponsor my closing city in Denver, Colorado on July 1st. And the goal is to raise a couple $100,000 for the National Leadership Academy, get us through the end of the year in the black, and really reignite and reinvigorate the heartland of America with the message of it's time to serve others and bring this country together through friendship and love.
Wow, that is incredible, an incredible story, and just a huge leap of faith. A lot of people would say, "Oh my gosh, what about the quarantine? Aren't you afraid you're going to get sick? What about?" And what would you say to any listeners that are thinking that right now? Have you quarantined? What's your position on social distancing and those things? Because I think it's really important that they know what you're doing, why you're doing it, but also the mindset behind, you're taking this stuff seriously. It isn't like you're one of these people that say, "Oh, it's a hoax," or that's not my understanding.
Yeah. Well, I'm married to a rule follower, Jill.
Yes.
So since the first day of the quarantine in early March.
I love you, Jill.
Yeah. We have 3 kids, and they're all been here at the house, and we've really, done our social distancing, and we haven't really been out of the house and really staying, close to home and wearing masks. And Jill goes out shopping once a week, and I'm working from home. So we've done our social distancing for March, April, May. And I think by the time the June comes around, we won't be able to go into a room and speak to many, many people, but 10 people can be around a dinner table. I mean, there's 5 people around my dinner table every night. There could be 5 more, people around the dinner table. And I think by mid-June to late June, America will be ready to host some people at their home, and have intimate conversations and intimate lunches and intimate breakfasts and intimate dinners and intimate conversations. And so I'm still going to obey the social distancing laws. I'm going to be in 11 different states. Each state has different laws. But my hope is by mid to late June that the country starts to have these conversations. I mean, just the other day, Curtis, I was playing golf with my son. And in golf, what I love about golf and teaching Tate golf is that it's all about etiquette. It's all about, not just about how hard you hit the golf ball, but the etiquette and the sportsmanship. And we were teed up with a husband and wife, and we were playing with them. And this lady put down her wedge to pick up her putter to putt the ball in. And it's always a gentleman when you pick up the person's wedge that they lay on the floor after their putt and hand them their club back. Golfers do it. When a golfer puts down a club and hits another club, it's always kind to pick up a club and hand it back. It's just part of the sport. And I went over to model to my son. I'm picking up this woman's club to hand it to her. And when I picked up the club, she looked at me like I was going to give her the coronavirus. And I realized that I made a mistake, that she was not ready for some stranger to pick up her club and hand it to her. And it made me realize that we are still living in fear. And I get it. I mean, I get the fear we lived in March, April, May. But by June, July, and August, this country has to stop living in fear and has to start picking up the golf club and hand it to your neighbor. And I'm not saying we all have to get back in large groups and have huge conferences and ball games and stadiums. That's not my expertise to advise on. But we have to be able to touch our neighbor. We have to be able to reach out and have dinner conversations and befriend people. And I think it starts, and that's one of the things I want to do in this tour, is in a very safe way start traveling around the heartland of America and having these intimate conversations, these intimate dinners, and start getting teams together. And it's a fact, Curtis, that these cities I'm going to and some of these companies that are bringing me in to have dinner with their senior team, these senior leaders haven't been in the same table, the same room in 3 months. And so I'm so excited to learn what they're going to be talking about by reuniting teams and having these intimate conversations. I hope a great book comes from all the great conversations that I had.
Well, I would just have to say that I've been lucky enough to sit at a few of those dinners, and it is very transformative. I've seen people come together and share things at these kind of meetings that you put together, and the way that you are so open and so loving and so vulnerable, you allow everyone else to do the same. And I've seen transformative change happen in a few hours. In other situations, it might take that group months and months. And that is one of your gifts, and that you want to go out as soon as possible and share that with other people and give that away for a tax donation, a tax deductible donation, is beautiful. But I also think it's why I love you so much as a person and respect you as a speaker and an author and just a leader. And that is, I've seen you at many times where you had two paths to pick, and you always go toward morals, ethics, values, and what's going to give the most to the end user. I've seen that over and over and over. And that's why I just hope that anyone that's listening and has the possibility to have you have dinner with their group, that happens. And all I can tell you is that donation you make for National Leadership Academy changes lives, and I want to make sure that doesn't go away. So thank you so much, Tommy, for being our guest today. And I only wish you the best on your trip. And I hope that you give us updates, and maybe at the end, you're able to come back on again and share some of those stories with us. And in the meantime, I hope everybody goes and checks out Tommy's stuff on his website. But also, Tommy, if someone's listening and they'd like to make a donation to National Leadership Academy, could you tell me how that would happen? What can they do if one of our listeners would like to reach out?
Oh, we'd be honored. It's the nationalleadershipacademy.org, and you can donate online there. And if you're listening and you want me to come to your town, I'll be doing this tour from June 13th to July 1st. And really going from Colorado to Toledo, Ohio, and back to Denver. And I'm waiving my traditional consulting fee. And the donation you make to bring me in your town is 100% tax deductible and a donation to the National Leadership Academy. So you can also just call my cell phone, 720-219-3050. I'm not crazy. That's my cell phone, my personal line. Just give me a call. I'll be on the road and be happy to stop in your town.
All right, Tommy. Well, God bless you for what you're doing, and I look forward to when I can see you, but more importantly, when I can give you one of those amazing, famous Tommy Spaulding hugs that you give out. So
Thanks,
thank
Curtis.
you, man.
I love you. Love to your family.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, everyone, it's time for my favorite part of this podcast. It's time for the 24-hour challenge, and I have never done this before, but I want you to think about an organization such as Tommy's. I want you to think about something that had an impact on you. It might have been a Boys and Girls Club. It might have been who knows what, but something that had a huge impact on you as you were growing up, or something that had an impact on one of your kids as they were growing up. I want you in the next 24 hours to, if you have the means, take $24 and I want you to donate it to that organization. Literally literally 24, that's $1 for each hour in the next 24 hours. $24. If you want to, go ahead and send that to the National Leadership Academy. That would be awesome. Why do I say that? Because I've seen the impact it's had on so many people's lives. Do it now, do the challenge, and let's keep living the dream and help others do the same with our heart-led leadership.
Thanks so much for listening to today's episode of The Next 24 Hours. Don't forget that to access the free audiobook that's available right now, go to curtiszimmerman.com and click Free VIP Experience on the landing page. Have a great day, and remember to keep living the dream.